Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is now 6 o'clock, and I would like to call the Rockdale County Board of Education work session to order. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved, Heather.
Second, Akita Plummer.
A motion to approve the agenda has been presented and approved. Well, motion by Duncan, second by Akita Palmer. Do we have any um, discussion?
Yes, there was an item on the agenda where I think the accountability department is supposed to be presenting. We did not receive a PowerPoint as we normally do. Are they presenting a PowerPoint or are they gonna just talk?
Is it?
Yeah, they're presenting on our 2024 Georgia milestones data. And on July 30th, I shared that data with our Board of Education in an email, both in the form of the state DOE link that linked to the state school and district summary reports, as well as our own internally generated Excel chart by Laura Grimwade, our federal programs director, who actually included the data from all of our Metro RESA districts, as well as the two Griffin RESA districts of Henry and Newton, as well as our 2024 CTAE data. So that information was shared with our board 9 days ago on July 30th. They're going to present on that data. And of course, the method that they're going to present is a PowerPoint, and that PowerPoint was shared with the board. Yes, it was delayed, and that happens sometimes, but it was shared this morning at about 5:30.
So the answer to my question is yes, they are presenting on a PowerPoint that we have not previously received. I know that you're saying that you shared it weeks ago, but normally when there is a presentation, we receive that PowerPoint on that Tuesday even if it's the same PowerPoint, I think it should have been attached to the agenda.
And there's no disagreement with that, but there are times when there are extenuating circumstances where we don't meet that deadline. But the important piece here is that the data they're presenting is the 2024 Georgia milestones data, and that data has been provided to the board 9 days ago.
So the answer is they are presenting.
Well,
On the
question
the
is, do
question
we have
was-
it? Yes, it's there. You should be able to pull it up at this time, and we're going to move forward with the
Madam Chair, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for stepping in. But like I said before, the normal procedure is when there is a presentation, we receive the PowerPoint attached to the agenda. That's all I'm saying. So the answer is the PowerPoint was not attached to the agenda. Yes, he shared it some weeks ago, but we got the agenda on Tuesday and the PowerPoint was not attached. Even though it is the same PowerPoint that was shared previously, I like to read over. I like to, the presentation that's going to come before us, I like to read that presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, so we want to move forward. All in favor of approving the agenda? Any opposed? All right, so Janie Jones
Yes.
did not approve. We will now recognize visitors who would like to address the board. Do we have any visitors today? Okay, so moving right along. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent cabinet updates. Dr. Oates?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, Madam Vice Chair, our distinguished board members, our equally distinguished executive cabinet, and our guests, and particularly our principals. I'm grateful for our principals being here tonight so that we can share a larger context and really hear directly from the people who are on the front lines in terms of what we're doing on our continuous improvement journey. And so I'm very pleased to invite to the podium our assistant superintendents for elementary, middle, and high schools. And they're going to be sharing data as they have each year on our 2024 milestones. In addition to the data that they will share what specific strategy be implementing to ensure that we're improving in the areas where there's still improvement to be had. Thank you, Dr. Givens.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chairwoman Duncan, Superintendent Oates, board members, guests. This evening, I bring you greetings on behalf of the Office of Accountability and School Performance, and I'm joined by my colleagues this evening, Dr. McLean and Mrs. Hunter. And we also wish to acknowledge our wonderful elementary and secondary principals who are here and will be presenting the instructional plans for the 24-25 school year. This evening, we would like to share the results of the Spring 2024 administration of the Georgia Milestones with an emphasis on intervention and enrichment plans for the school year. Unlike years in the past, and as you all know, we do not currently have our data back from our math milestones assessments, but we still do plan to share our planned work with each of you this evening. Before our team begins, I would like to provide a refresher on the Georgia Milestones assessment at the elementary level. Our elementary students sit for the end of grade tests, and sometimes they're referred to as the EOGs, in the content areas of English Language Arts, ELA, math, and science. Our English Language Arts includes writing and reading as well, and is assessed at all grade levels 3, 4, and 5. The reading component of the assessment for ELA is measured via a Lexile score at the different grade levels. And math is also tested at grades 3, 4, and 5, and science at the elementary is only assessed at the 5th grade. The results for Georgia Milestones are reported as levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. A level 1 student per the Georgia Department of Education is a beginning learner who does not yet meet and demonstrate proficiency and needs substantial academic support to be prepared for the next grade. A level 2 student is defined as a developing learner who demonstrates partial proficiency, and that student does need some academic support to be prepared for the next grade. A level 3 student is proficient. They demonstrate proficiency and they are prepared for the next grade, while a level 4 student is characterized as distinguished, who demonstrates advanced proficiency and is well prepared for the upcoming grade. At the elementary level, reading is an area where we can celebrate growth last year for grades 3 and 5. At 3rd grade, we saw an increase of 3 percentage points for students performing at or above grade level. Our 3rd and 5th graders are able to assess again in our reading. And once our 3rd graders, those who did not meet, who were below, had an opportunity to retest, that increase grew to a 10 percentage point from the previous year. At 5th grade, we saw an increase of 1 percentage point for students performing at or above grade level. However, once our students retested, that grew to a 6 percentage point increase. At 4th grade, we did see a 2 percentage point decrease in performance. Unfortunately, and as we've shared previously, our 4th grade students do not have an opportunity to retest per our state assessment plan. But we did want to note for those, for our board and for those who are watching, that while we did not see a district-wide increase, and we do understand that that 4th grade is, and our current 5th graders are definitely a grade level of focus for us for this year. We did notice that 5 of our 11 elementary schools, they did show an improvement from last year at the 4th grade level, and 1 elementary school's performance remained the same. In English Language Arts, when analyzing levels 2 through 4, combined, all grade levels increased their performance. At 3rd and 4th grades, we saw an increase of 2 percentage points, and in 5th grade, we saw an increase by 1 percentage point.
Good evening.
As Dr. Gibbons previously shared, fifth grade is the only grade level at the elementary level that tests in science. When looking at the district level data for 2024, the data, comparing it to our data in 2023, we saw a 3% decrease in the performance of levels 2 through 4 combined. However, I would like to note 4 of the 11 elementary schools did show improvements in levels 2 through 4. One elementary school level 2 through 4 performance was the same as the state, and one elementary school exceeded the state. This slide highlights some bright spots noted from the spring 24 milestones data. In reading, the percentage of students performing at above grade level in reading increased from spring 23 to spring 24 in grades 3 and 5. Digging a little deeper, we also noticed that for third grade reading, 6 of our elementary schools showed an increase ranging from 5% to 14% from the previous school year. And one elementary school outperformed the state. For fifth grade, 5 schools showed an increase ranging from 4% to 18%, and one elementary school performed the same as the state. For ELA, the percentage of students performing at levels 2 through 4 increased from spring 23 to spring 24 for all of our tested grades at elementary school. So that would be grades 3, 4, and 5. I want to note that for third grade, 6 of our schools showed an increase ranging from 1% to 12%, and one elementary school's performance remained the same from the previous year. Fourth grade ELA, 7 of the 11 schools showed an increase ranging from 3% to 12%, and one school outperformed the state. For fifth grade ELA, 4 of our schools showed an increase ranging from 6 to 22%. Although we did have an overall decrease in science, 3 of our schools showed noteworthy improvements in science, with 2 schools increasing by 7% and 1 school increasing by 23%. We also had another school to increase by 2%, and we had 1 school to outperform the state. While we're able to recognize and celebrate some district level and school level bright spots in the spring 24 data, we realize that there is still work to be done. It is our goal to increase the number of students who perform at proficient and above levels. We have provided a high-level overview of the data tonight, but I do want to say that our school-level administrators and our school-based teams have analyzed their data, and they've used it to create their school improvement plan and to inform their instructional plans. At this time, I would like to invite our elementary principals, Ms. Beckett, Drs. Vaughn, and Dr. Wakefall to provide information regarding our instructional plans and our next steps.
Ms. McLaren, is it possible that we can ask a question before the principals start?
Sure.
We have one question.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I hear you saying 4 of our 11 improved, 1 remained the same, 1 exceeded, that equals 6. So what happened to the other 5 schools on several things? So what did they do?
So that means that their score did not increase.
They below or?
So it means their score decreased from the 2023 when you're comparing to 2024.
So they decreased, okay.
Thank you.
So they wouldn't get a decrease, okay.
Okay.
For Dr. McLean, please. Dr. McLean, is it possible that you could tell us overall how many students tested for third grade, for all of the grade levels? How many students? Mhm. Okay, and is that percentage in relations to the number of students, or is it the overall test score? When you say 3% increase, is that 3% of students, or is that an overall score or rating from the state? Mhm. Okay, thank you. And I want to say this, that You all, I am an educator as well, right? So I most definitely appreciate everything that you all do. But part of what we do is part of what the asking of the questions, it is to see how we can better support you all. I know that there are policies and procedures in place that prevent or hinder you all from doing your job. But part of getting to the bottom of it is asking questions. So my questions are not directed towards you. I'm an educator. Remember, I sit where, well, I'm not a principal, I'm not an AP, but I sit in the school as well. And just like you all have demands on you, I have demands on me. And there are many days when I say, how do you expect this when this policy over here prevents me from doing my job? So please, when you hear the questions, it's not directed towards you. I'm trying to support you to get to the bottom of how can we as a board support you all in doing your jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beckett.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chairwoman Duncan, Rockdale County Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Oates, our cabinet members and guests. I'm the proud principal, of course, of Peach Chapel Elementary, and I am here to share what elementary has planned for next steps after hearing our data for the 24-25 school year. And so here we have a new literacy program called Benchmark Advance, which we've adopted this school year. The program will include 120 minutes of literacy instruction, and it's a comprehensive program that includes the 5 components of literacy. So we have our phonics, vocabulary, reading, writing, and grammar. So our teachers will no longer have to use supplemental resources or additional resources to teach those 5 components. And we're very excited about this because it will be seamless for the teachers. Our scholars will be able to make connections and apply what they're learning across those 5 components of reading. And so that's something that we're very excited about with this new program. Also with the new program, as you see here on the screen, there is a suggested schedule, and I will share with you some of the highlights and components from the grade band K through 2. So the grade band K through 2, there will be a 10-minute read aloud, 50 minutes of reading and vocabulary, and during that 50 minutes, you will have whole group and small group, and of course, the small group will include differentiation. And then they also will have a block of time for grammar, which will be 30 minutes. So that will include grammar and writing. For 3rd through 5th grade, their 120 minutes will include, again, a 10-minute read aloud, 60 minutes of reading and vocabulary, which will also include the whole group and small group. And it would also include the differentiation during that small group time. And they will have 50 minutes of writing and grammar. So again, very excited about this because it will address those 5 pillars of reading, which are here. And so, of course, the 5 pillars of reading is phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And additional instruction will take place, such as spelling and handwriting, speaking and listening. Of course, this program has formative assessments. We will have diagnostic assessments through the program, unit assessment. It also has weekly quick checks. And so we will be constantly assessing our students and analyzing the data. And of course, it has opportunities for differentiated instruction. This program also has a strong integration of science and social studies. And so we're very excited about that piece as well. So we love the program. I know everyone can tell you how excited I am about it. And so we know that our teachers are getting excited. We've hit the ground running at the end of last year and started with professional development for our teachers and leaders. Of course, they've had professional development with this program over the summer. And of course, this whole school year, Teaching and Learning has a calendar dedicated for constant professional learning so that our teachers and leaders become familiar with this program. So again, we're excited about this new piece. Also new with ELA, we have a new intervention piece. Dr. Wakefall is going to share more about interventions, but we have a new intervention piece called Sunday. And this program will be for our at-risk scholars. We will have push-in and pull-out supports with Sunday from our EIP teachers, SWD teachers, our English language learners teachers, and our reading specialists. But we have been given specific guidelines. We've received mock schedules. We've received templates to ensure that these push-in and pull-out supports do not interfere with the core instruction that our scholars and students should receive during that core instruction of the literacy block. Also, we're going to continue using STAR Reading and STAR EL to analyze our data throughout the year. In our PLCs, we'll be creating those small groups based on our data because we know that STAR EL, STAR Reading is an indicator of how our students will perform at the end of the year, as well as on Georgia milestones. And so we will continue to use that data throughout the year to create flexible groups, to target our instruction throughout the year. So you will notice that we will continue doing that practice as well. Also, all leaders and teachers and paras who support instruction participated in the Science of Reading modules this past school year, and we will continue those with new individuals. And that is just preparing us and teaching us of how students learn how to read and the strategies that we should use to teach them to read. And so we know that L4GA has also supported us with this endeavor. We've gone through the letters cohort, and these Science of Reading modules has taught us different things and strategies to use. So they've supported us in purchasing some instructional resources such as sound wall cards, writing journals, and mirror sets to support our teachers with instruction in this area. And so as a team, as you heard the next steps in ELA, we can tell you that elementary is very dedicated and devoted to implement all of these practices. Again, teaching and learning and our assistant superintendents have approved our schedules. They've ensured that our schedules align with 120 minutes. And so we all are committed to the next steps that you've heard this evening in ELA. And so now I'll invite Dr. Vaughn to share the next steps in math.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Kenny Vaughn. I'm the proud principal of J.H. House Elementary School, and I have the privilege of speaking about what we're doing to support our students with math during the 24-25 school year. As Dr. Givens said, we have not received our data for math for the 24 milestones administration. However, we are being proactive and we already have supports in place and continuing things from last year with our rollout of the new Georgia K-12 math standards. And so we're in our second year with Georgia Reveal, which is a resource that is aligned to those standards. And then we are also placing heavy emphasis at the elementary level on the instructional frameworks that are provided by the Georgia Department of Education and the learning plans that are also involved in those that differentiate that learning for students at different levels. We are also continuing with support sessions through teaching and learning in the math department on those standards and best practices with aligning our classroom instruction to those standards as they have changed from in the past. We had support sessions last year, and those will continue during this year as well. We also have a strong emphasis at the elementary level on manipulatives because students in the past would be doing math problems, but not necessarily understanding what they were doing. So using those manipulatives to make those concepts more concrete for our students so they're able to visualize what they are doing with those operations in math. And so just a couple of examples of some of the highlights of what we're emphasizing with math as well. We have a strong emphasis with these new standards on mathematical modeling. So not just doing that bare math, but making it more concrete, real world applications for students so they understand how that math will apply in their everyday life. We're also making connections between literacy and mathematics as well. We have the Georgia Department of Education has literature in mathematics lessons that are in instructional learning plans. And then also at the elementary level, we have resources called Math by the Book that we have purchased with L4GA funds that also help bridge that gap and those concepts between literacy and mathematics, because even when students are able to understand the mathematical concepts, sometimes literacy difficulties can impair them reading the questions and understanding what those questions are asking them. So bridging those gaps is very important as well. And then you can see that there are also components of those mathematical instructional learning plans, which has been a shift for us in moving to the Georgia K-12 mathematics standards as well. And so all of these things are ways that we're going to be supporting our students for the 24-25 school year. And so I'd like to invite Dr. Wakefall up to talk about other instructional supports at the elementary level.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. And so I am the principal of C.J. Hicks Elementary School. I'm Dr. Erica Wakefall, and I am pleased to share with you about our safety net funds and how we use them, as well as our intervention and enrichment blocks. So our safety net funds are used to provide targeted instruction for subgroups of students, and we do rely on data from our universal screeners, from our Georgia Milestones assessments to carefully craft those subgroups of students. Learning opportunities include fall and spring after school programs that target reading, writing, and math strategies. We offer Saturday school opportunities and small group tutorials. And as the different leaders in our building, we know our school community, so we are able to craft those special learning opportunities that best meet the needs of the students that we service. In terms of interventions and our enrichment block, we provide small group differentiated instruction for reading and math, and that is for all students during the school day. And those blocks are up to 50 minutes in length. So we are able to provide that dedicated time, and our master schedules do reflect the support and services that they receive for intervention and enrichment as well. So that, I believe, concludes our presentation on the elementary side. Are there any questions for us as the elementary group? All right, and so now we'll turn it over to Ms. Hunter for secondary school.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be presenting on behalf of secondary. Our milestone assessment will be starting with middle school, and I will begin with reading language arts. From the school year 23 to school year 24, sixth grade had an increase of 7% of students performing at levels 2 through 4. Seventh grade had at or above for reading. Seventh grade had a 2% increase in students performing at the grade level or above. And in eighth grade, we did have a decrease in the amount of students performing at reading level or above, but with retest, we gained it back. As far as ELA, far as levels 2 through 4 in sixth grade, we had an increase.
And Kim, what was that decrease, and then what was the increase? You said they were the same.
Yes, so it's noted for eighth grade, it said it decreased by 2%,
Gotcha.
and then it's highlighted with the second retest, it was a gain of 2%,
Right.
which is included under eighth grade with the retest, but it was initially a decrease of 2%. For ELA, we had an increase of 4% in levels 2 through 4. We also had an increase of 5% in levels 3 through 4. In the seventh grade, we held steady. And for levels 3 through 4, we increased by 1%. And in eighth grade, we decreased by 1% in levels 2 through 4, but we did indeed have an increase of 5% in levels 3 through 4. As you will see, our major focus for this school year will be eighth grade science. We've worked on science, but we will have a more unified focus on science. So in high school physical science, we held steady, and the number of students performing at levels 2 through 4. We decreased, and the number of students performing levels 3 and 4 by 1%. In eighth grade science, we did decrease from levels 2 through 4 by 11%, and we will actually dedicate a whole slide to talk about our targeted interventions for eighth grade science. We also decreased in eighth grade science by 6% in levels 3 through 4. And then in eighth grade social studies, we decreased by 1%, levels 2 through 4, and decreased levels 3 through 4 by 2% in eighth grade social studies. We will have Mrs. Dyer and Mr. Shivu joining us to present our highlights and our interventions. Mrs. Dyer.
Good evening to everyone. I am the proud principal of General Ray Davis Middle School. My name is Kimberly Dyer, and I do have the pleasure of sharing with you the highlights of our middle school data. I do want to start with sharing the reading data, where our eighth grade students did have a passing rate that exceeded the state's passing rate. And with the reading data, reading is based on a binary level where you have students that are at or above grade level, as well as those that are below. For our eighth grade English language arts, the district percent of students that were at the 4 proficiency levels, they scored at levels 2 through 4, which again exceeded the state's percent at levels 2, 3, and 4 combined. Our Carnegie Physical Science students at the district level, their percent for levels 2, 3, and 4 combined, again, we are proud that they exceeded the state's percent of levels at 2, 3, and 4 combined. So next, I'd like to identify for you our cohort data. It's important to focus on our cohort data so that we can see how our students perform over several school years. All
And
students.
Kim, let me ask you this, and I think you did a very good job of it, but we do have people who are watching from home who may not be as knowledgeable as some of these. Define what we mean by cohort as compared to the other ways that you've presented the data.
Yes, sir.
Or Kim, either Kim or Kim, right? Right.
I'll take a stab at it. So with our cohort data, what that means is we are looking at students as they matriculate through middle school, beginning at their 6th grade year. We review that same group of students when they transition to 7th grade, and we review that same data for those students when they transition to 8th grade. So that will be considered one cohort of students.
For what we shared, to add on to Mrs. Dyer, we shared 6 to 7, the same group of kids. And
On the mic, if you
7 to 8.
would, Kim.
So I'm sorry. And what we shared today are the students going from 6th grade 2 years ago to 7th grade last year. And then a group of students, the same cohort 2 years ago were in 7th grade. And then last year were in 8th grade, to see are those individual students growing from year to year while with us in middle school.
So continuing with our cohort data, we are looking at that level of continuous improvement for our students. And we are proud to celebrate that all students, all cohorts demonstrated growth in the areas of English language arts as well as reading. Now, specifically looking at our 6th grade students, this cohort at the time that they were in 6th grade during school year 23, 49% of them scored at or above reading. And again, with reading, it is a binary level where they are either at or above or below. The same group of students who were 7th graders during school year 24 were at 66% at or above reading level, and this does show an increase for that cohort of 15 percentage points. For English language arts, the 6th grade students at school year 23, they scored at 62% at levels 2, 3, and 4. And again, for English language arts, it is rated at 4 proficiency levels: beginning, developing, proficient, and distinguished. So these students scored at 62% in school year 23. Those same students as 7th graders scored at 66% at levels 2, 3, and 4, and that represents a 4 percentage point increase. Reading for 7th graders during school year 23 scored at 64% at or above reading level. This same group of students, when they transitioned to be 8th graders during school year 24, scored at 73% at or above reading level, and that is an increase of 9 percentage points. And lastly, English language arts, our 7th grade students for school year 23 scored at 66% for levels 2, 3, and 4 combined, and those 8th graders during last school year of 24 improved at 79%, which is a 13% increase. I do want to call up now Principal Chavis for our plan for continuous improvement.
Good afternoon, board, distinguished guests, team, friends. Thank you for this opportunity to present and share our data. As Ms. Hunter has already alluded to, our plan and intentionality behind addressing the physical science data that was shared with you previously. As Dr. Oates always reminds us, there's only 2 types of people in this profession: those who teach children and those who support those who teach children. And so in a collective effort with our T&L department, through the vehicle of teaching science with confidence, we turned our attention to addressing and supporting our teachers' ability to deliver comprehensive lessons that incorporate the hands-on learning experiences that students really need at that physical science level, i.e. 8th grade, to prove proficient. And so in partnering with the science specialists, they'll provide cohort PL, where teachers will go off campus and have the opportunity to learn the pedagogical skills and the information needed to deliver those, in conjunction with also delivering or receiving in-house or local school coaching and observations from those same specialists to improve those those pedagogical skills and opportunities. And there's a tiered approach in collaboration with the local schools. So the principals have identified those teachers who would best benefit from those opportunities, and we're in direct conversation and communication with our TNL department to ensure that that happens. For our intervention as it relates to math and reading, ELA, we're working with our model school conference. Many of us attended that conference over the summer. And what we brought back was an opportunity to improve our math instruction at the 6th grade level so that when we come back and have those continual conversations about that cohort data, starting at the 6th grade level and those students matriculating, we're ensuring that our teachers are able to provide intentional, comprehensive, and effective small group instruction in 6th grade mathematics. That is also going to be consistent with our implementation for math interventions. We've comprised and identified the iReady math component as our vehicle for making sure that we have a mainstream curriculum and intentional approach for all math connection classes across the middle grades level. We're utilizing our intervention blocks to address those prerequisite skills and address the remediation opportunities as well as the acceleration opportunities to ensure that as we're looking at our cohort data, no student is being left behind, and we're meeting them where they are in an intentional manner. Continue to analyze that cohort data because it also not only looks at the performance of students, but also highlights the growth and the opportunity to accelerate and move them forward as we're continuing throughout this school year. After school and Saturday school tutorials are still an option and intentional in their approach in which we select them in conjunction with our RTI MTSS process, ensuring that the right students are taking advantage of our tutorial programs and also addressing those same subgroup of students through our intervention process. Every middle school has a instructional coach, if not two instructional coaches, to support our veteran and induction level teachers to ensure that they are getting the information that they need, the support, the continual coaching, and growing their capacity. As stated just a while ago, there are two types of people in this business, those who are teaching students and those who are supporting. So our intentional approach and the interventions that we're doing is pouring into our teachers to ensure that the person that's standing in front of our students every single day has everything that they need and the tools and the capabilities needed to deliver that high quality instruction every day. At this time, we'll turn it over to high school. Okay.
We did stop at middle. At the elementary to answer any questions. Are there any questions for middle before we proceed to high school? I will be presenting high school as well. Okie dokie. We'll now proceed to our high school end of course exams for spring 2024. We will begin with the trend data for the last 3 years for ELC exam snapshot at the high school level. You will see for AMLIT, it did hold steady here at 67% of students being at levels 2 through 4. In biology, there was a slight dip in the percent of students from levels 2 through 4. And we've continued to increase in U.S. history regarding student performance and the percent of kids in levels 2 through 4. So to put that in another way to present that, for biology, we had a 1% decrease at developing or above levels, and proficient or above held steady. In American Lit, which are our juniors who actually are in that course, we held steady at the level of developing or above, which is levels 2 through 4. And we did have a 5% increase in proficient or above levels. In U.S. history, which is our strongest test data, we had a 4% increase at developing or above, which is levels 2 through 4. And we had a 1% increase in levels 3 and 4. We'll now share with Mrs. Basket, and Dr. Price will go through our highlights and also our instructional structure as it relates to high school and our interventions for high school.
Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chairwoman Duncan, Superintendent Dr. Oates, and distinguished board. I'm Amanda Basket, the director at Rockdale Magnet School for Science and Technology. We are delighted that U.S. history performance has continued to increase for the last 3 years at the high school level. This year, the percent of students performing both at levels 2 through 4 and 3 through 4 increased, while American literature performance held steady for levels 2 through 4 from the prior year. And the percent of students performing at levels 3 through 4, though, have increased. So we're going to build on this plan and have worked with our teams to ensure continuous improvement. With that, we have started this cycle and will continue doing it throughout the school year as new data is available. We are ensuring rigorous and engaging Tier 1 instruction. This is done through class observations, our professional learning community teams, and the use of district-provided curriculum documents. We will be triangulating and analyzing our data, using our state assessment data shared tonight, as well as the STAR data, our common formative and summative assessments, attendance, and discipline. We'll be conducting and have conducted root analysis to make sure that we're looking at the root causes. Our why is going to inform our what's next and has already been a part of our school improvement plans and as we move forward. We're determining the levels of support that are needed. We're developing the plan of continuous improvement. Across our high schools, our school improvement plan goals and action steps have been informed by our data and to meet the needs of the students that we have now and the teachers that are making that growth possible in our classrooms. We're going to put in place intervention programs to support remediation needs, as well as enrichment to ensure growth of students across all levels. We have instructional coach support in place and teacher professional learning and ongoing collaborative professional learning community teams. And our focus is on the fidelity of our plan implementation. This is done through informal and formal classroom walks, constantly reviewing student classroom performance, the use of our curriculum resources, and also continuing to collaborate with teaching and learning. So as we focus in on student support for this next school year, we are going to be analyzing our common assessment data to identify both strengths and weaknesses. We're going to be building extension activities to build on students' strengths to ensure that we're increasing student performance at the proficient and distinguished levels. We have safety net supports in place to provide weaker support in weaker academic areas. These include both before and after and Saturday tutorial programs that are targeted to meet students where they are to ensure growth for all. We will have multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate mastery of the standards. We want to ensure that our students are reaching proficient and distinguished levels, and that if they don't get it the first time, that they're being supported and our teachers are supported to help ensure continued growth. We're implementing AVID best practices across our schools, and also in our AP classrooms for advanced placement learners that have the opportunity to earn college credit, that we are embedding formative assessment data in practice for individualized support through the AP classroom platform. We are also focusing on our subgroups in their performance and their individual needs at each of our schools. Making the student support possible and their success possible is our teachers. And our teacher support will include, as their middle school colleagues have shared, using our instructional coaches to provide professional learning as we conduct coaching cycles, with everyone, including planning, observation, and feedback. Our PLC teams will be focused on lesson planning, instructional strategies, student performance data, and very key, student engagement. We want to make learning exciting and fun for students and relevant through high rigor activities and hands-on learning. And we'll continue to collaborate with our teaching and learning division to, as any gaps are identified, to support our teachers so that they can continue to ensure growth across the board.
And good evening. I am and Dr. Price, proud principal of Salem High School. And so in terms of science and social studies, one of the things that we focus on at the secondary level is really using the data and to drive instruction. And so Tier 1 instruction touches all students, every classroom, every day. And so for us at the secondary level, it's really using the milestone data, the STAR data, the common formative assessments, and also the interim and assessments to really drive instruction and make sure that we close the learning gaps for students in every area. A key priority for us at the secondary level is students will take assessments, but teachers should grade those assessments and provide written feedback to each and every student. it's important that the feedback is tailored to that student's specific needs to make sure that that student can perform at the highest level each and every time moving forward. The next is making sure that we raise the rigor in the classroom. And in order to raise test scores, students must be exposed to rigorous instruction and rigorous lessons throughout a instructional unit. And so for us, in working with teaching and learning, students do use in DBQs in social studies. And DBQs, it requires a student to read articles, to express themselves orally, to write essays. And so we have made a priority in science and social studies to really focus on literacy. And so by using DBQs in social studies, it forces literacy for each and every student that takes a course. In science, and we are really prioritizing that students are asked open-ended questions, that students are forced to explain what they see happening and occurring in classroom with labs. And then with 3D learning, that's really about students being exposed to thinking like a scientist and to thinking like an engineer. And because our ultimate goal at the secondary level is to produce students who are problem solvers. And so we believe through that type of instruction that students are forced to think critically and speak it. And because if a student can speak it and write it, and then we know independently that a student has learned the material. When it comes to language arts and mathematics, so we still try to show gains, but the process stays the same. We are heavily focused on using data to inform instruction. We have to know where each and every student is in order to provide their appropriate support. So one thing we do is once students take an assessment, all teachers go back and look through the data. Teachers and administrators and instructional coaches. From that data, we identify those key skills and standards that students may not have mastered. Those standards are retaught through skill lessons and mini lessons where teachers reteach and then students are reassessed. In that reassessment, it's not just about those students that did not perform well. It's also for those students that scored a 95 or 100. We are trying to do enrichment activities as well as remediate. And because the goal is to push the number of students scoring at levels 3 and 4. And so each and every teacher in building has to be intentional and about raising the rigor for every child in those courses. At a secondary level, we also use Think Circa. So one of the things that we noticed in American Lit is students are required to write and express themselves. And so as an instructional team, we're using the Think Circa data and information to make sure that all students have the appropriate stamina, and two, that all teachers are teaching to those skill gaps that students may have. It goes back to science and social studies. Literacy is a focus across all content areas. And so we continue to express to our teachers that every teacher is an English teacher. Every teacher can use those best practices and strategies that cut and across all content areas. We will continue to do personalized feedback. And so personalized feedback for language arts looks like students in small groups conversing with teachers and about their writing. Teachers talk to students and throughout in the writing process. It's not that students type a 2-page paper and then press submit and then get feedback. That is an ongoing process. So students understand their strengths and weaknesses throughout the process. And then lastly, when it comes to the writing samples. And so our language arts teachers do a fantastic job. And because if you teach 120 or 25 students, that's a lot of writing to grade. But they do a fantastic job of grading in a timely manner and providing feedback. And because the only way to raise test scores across the board is a real emphasis on providing individual feedback to students. And so that takes multiple looks, multiple times. So we have done a great job with teaching and learning of really working with teachers on how to chunk the instruction, how to chunk the grading, and really using rubrics so that students can self-assess and make sure they understand their strengths and their weaknesses. In the language arts classrooms, one thing that is key for a student is students are reading articles or text that they are interested in. And so at the secondary level, we are placing the emphasis on making sure that we choose the appropriate text for students at the appropriate lexile that match their interests. And because research shows that if students are interested and engaged, then lexiles will rise. in terms of coordinating with teaching and learning in the math department. They've done a fantastic job at the secondary level of really coming in and modeling with teachers in small group sessions during planning time to make sure that they understand the math learning plans. And so the math learning plans can be a challenge. And because it's really stretching the thinking for students, it's not really multiple choice. It's really, can you apply the content? Can you really express it? Can you illustrate the concept? And so that is a teaching shift and it's a thinking shift for students, but it's well worth it. And because the goal is to ultimately produce productive citizens that can think critically and perform at high levels. And so I believe with the math plans, we really are producing students who can not only learn the content, but apply it in a variety of contexts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Price, Mrs. Baskett. So at this time, this does conclude our high school. Do we have any questions for the high school level? Thank you so much. Sorry.
Safety net plans you have in place, Saturday school and all the different programs that you have planned to
Yes,
bring
ma'am.
forth. Yes, they're always sabotage in my mic. Are you guys reaching out to students that are identified as struggling, or you're opening it up to all students who might think that they need a little bit more? Or are you just targeting those students that have been identified as needing the assistance?
So I can speak to the secondary level. We did target student groups, those who were struggling, and we also invited those to enrich. So I can say, like, my daughter participated last year in a safety net program, and it wasn't because she was struggling per se, it was to have exposure and to grow and to stretch her as well. And so we do have a targeted focus in student groups who we know that we want to make sure that they're performing at the level of the academic peers, if not better. But it's always open. We'll never turn a student away to be in one of our supplemental programs for our safety net programs, but it is targeted for areas that we are not performing where we want to be and we need to increase. And that's why we identify it through a process of looking at our school improvement goals and our student data. So typically it's going to be around reading and math, making sure, and then for us at the middle school level, of course, science, and at the high school level, biology, to make sure we're supporting kids through that. But I can also attest at the high school level, they also have advanced placement support for those students in advanced placement. And so we've gone through reading those safety net plans just recently. So I kind of am like visualizing them in my head, because at the secondary, they were due just recently. So it's been very concerted, but just not one way. It's just multiple ways, whether it's Saturday school, after school, or virtual. It's been a way to kind of bring everybody in to provide the support needed.
And how are you addressing the challenges that come with transportation for after school, Saturday school, because you do have working families?
We provide with safe. If you use Title I plans, you have to provide transportation with that plan. That's a mandate. And then our safety net funds provided from teaching and learning from Mrs. Chester does allow for us to do that. So between Mr. Budenseek and Mrs. Chester, they've worked with us to make sure that our students are able to get where they need to get the additional support needed. And I'm sorry, Ellen, I probably spoke a little bit too much.
I mean, I think it's the same for elementary. Our schools do complete a school improvement plan, and as a part of that plan, it's specifically in response to their school data. So schools are a little bit flexible in what they do because they're really targeting the needs of their students. So to answer your question directly, we do target students who show that they are not yet at mastery, but schools also have caseloads of students who are considered at on grade level or above, who may not quite be performing where they need to be. So we also do have that subgroup again. But to be noted, we not only have after school opportunities, we have our embedded time during the day. So all students are touched, whether it is with enrichment for our students who are at or above grade level, and remediation for those students who are below grade level.
So I'm sorry. I know that the younger ones can't articulate their needs, but Kim, for the kids that are in middle school and high school that might feel like they're on the edge, but they're not being identified, can they approach their counselors, teachers to say that I need the extra support?
Yes, ma'am. They would approach their counselors, but teachers should also have that relationship to see what's going on with the student, know their academic record, know how they typically have performed, and build that relationship. We're in day 9 of school, day 8 of school. So they're learning their students. At the high school is even harder because with the AB rotation, they've only probably seen their students twice. But as you build those relationships, the expectation is you know your students, you know how they're growing. We also look at if you're at a level 3, but you're not growing, your performance level, you're not growing much. That's important for us too. So we have schools that will look at SGP, which is student growth percentile. And if you're not growing at a standardized rate of being at the middle or if not high, we look at that as well. You may be proficient, but if you're not growing, then we're still not stretching you to meet your potential.
August, or you can't get in at all until the next school semester? There's no time parameters?
No, because we do assessments throughout the year. So as we're inviting students at the beginning of the year, if we notice that students are struggling and need the extra support, or if we're doing an enrichment and we feel like that will benefit additional students, the parents can request or the teachers can just send invitations to invite people to that. So it's not stagnant. You know, when you're in it at the beginning of the year, you can always, some kids may no longer need it, but then we may have some students who need it. So it's very flexible.
Thank you.
I have a question. You shared the amount of students who we increase and decrease. Is it possible that you could share how many students in grades 3, 5, and 8 that we have at each performance level on the milestones?
We definitely can share. It's shared through the state as well. I did not bring my graphics with me, but yes, ma'am, we can get that to you. How many perform at level 1, 2, 3, and 4? Now, 1 would be understood. Once you have the 2 through 4, the leftover would be 1. So I want to say, like for reading for 8th grade, it was 75% with levels at or above. So 25% would be below for 8th grade reading. And then as it relates to 8th grade ELA, would have to look at that. I don't have that committed to memory, but I can get it to you.
And if you all could also share those students who were at the below level, how many of those students were retained and how many of those students were placed in the next grade, please? Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I have the floor? I don't have a question, just a general comment, and this is more for the administration than y'all. But in, excuse me, in general, in the presentation, what we saw was percentage increase, percentage decrease. But what we did not get was a baseline. And I made this critique a year ago when we got the same, when I gave the same criticism, and too many times during this presentation, all we saw was a percentage increase and decrease. So I charged the administration, not only for us, I know the board has ready access to this information, but we are not the only ones that are getting this information. There are people that are watching online right now that are stakeholders that want to know the overall performance of the schools. And if they don't know what the baseline is, the percentage increase means nothing to them. If I tell you a car increased 5 miles per hour, you can't tell how fast the car is going. So that's my charge to the administration. I want to commend the administrators of the schools. Overall, it looked like there was growth. I want to commend you, and I hope you pass my well wishes on to your staff as well to continue the good work. Thank you.
Yes, and let me join Board Member Kinney in commending our exemplary leaders on the work that you're doing. And again, just so that our public understands that we understand that many in our public won't necessarily understand all the nuance of the data that they are otherwise readily able to access, because when the state released all of this data on July 26th, Friday, July 26th, you'll remember where you were. Most of us, we were at the convocation, but they released that at 10 a.m. That's available to everyone, right? And it's also the link that I shared with the board on July 30th, where you can literally go and you can drill down to school level data, right? System data as well, right? So school data, system data as well. So it takes some time. I did that. I took a weekend to just go through it, because I want to look at other districts in Metro Risa, right? Because we're part of Metro Risa. We're one of 12 school districts that comprise Metro Risa. And I'm having conversations with my colleagues in other districts as we're talking about our achievement. And of course, for as an example, Gwinnett and DeKalb are in Metro Risa. Henry and Newton are in Griffin Risa, but they're regional partners. So we have conversations as well about our data. And so we're seeing some of the same things, but we all have the same goals, which is to increase performance all across those performance levels, and particularly moving students from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4. And one of the things I'm proud of is how we saw some significant gains in our proficient and above. And that's really a goal that we have. With respect to the information that Board Member Jones requested, I'll certainly comply with that. Obviously, I'll get that data to the board with respect to, you asked about specifically about retention as it connects to students' level of performance at performance level 1 and the like. So I think I've shared some of that data previously in previous years, and so we'll do that again. I may seek clarification from you about exactly what you're seeking so that I can make sure that I give the full board what you have requested. But at this time, Phil is going to come with several action items in the operational realm. And so the floor is Mr. Budensieg.
Senior principal, start the day off with you and ending it with you. What a lucky guy I am. Good evening, Madam Chair Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, board members, and Dr. Terry Oates, our superintendent. Good to see you all.
People are cold, I believe.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yes, ma'am, I got you. One of these days, I'm going to have it just right. Usually it's just perfectly set. All right, the first one we have, if this thing will work for us, is the Rockdale County government and Rockdale County Public Schools is MOU to donate a patrol vehicle to Edwards Middle School. The superintendent will recommend the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between the Rockdale County, Georgia, and Rockdale County Public Schools for the donation of a decommissioned sheriff's office vehicle to Edwards Middle School for their public safety program. And the donation of this vehicle, it's a Crown Vic Unit 400. It's to be used in their education process to give them an understanding and an opportunity, and that will also feed into Jason Gray's program over at RCA. This vehicle will be located at Edwards Middle School, and it'll give the kids a good opportunity to. There's no cost to us. The county has already moved on action on that to donate it to us, and we're excited about that opportunity to get that vehicle. Again, when they use it, staff will set it, put it where they need it for the class. It will not be driven around kids or driven by students. In fact, we may have to help put some safety things on that for them. My second action item is the facilities ABM custodial contract. If you recall, a year ago, June, I believe it was, we had a contract with ABM that you guys approved for us for the last year. And we came off a year of that we needed a lot of improvement. And so we had that contract, and I did not realize until last month that it did not have the normal extra year services that just roll into once we approve their CPI. So the CPI request came to me in April. And so we looked at that, and as I was negotiating and working on that, I realized that we need a contract, talked to Mr. Santana Flanagan, and he helped me understand that we should just go ahead with a normal process of requesting a contract. So that's what this is tonight. Superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the selection of ABM custodial services for the 2024-2025 school year for the sum of $4.258,126.32. This is a 1.278% operational increase over the 2023-24 school year. Now, they requested 4%. I reviewed the cost of their business in the Atlanta metro area, and that standard is 3.3%. So we're working with 3.3% number for them for an increase. In the meantime, we had an idea of having us a quality control person that answers to us and is a Rockdale County Public School person. So we negotiated with them out of that 3.3%. We took $85,000 out of that, and that's to fund a salary and the benefits that we provide to our employees to have a Rockdale County Public School quality assurance position. This contract has standard yearly CPI renewals that we negotiate yearly. It has a standard rollover for the next 4 years. It is contingent upon the superintendent and the general counsel's approval. The rationale is ABM will provide full custodial services for the district's 2,888,500 square feet as outlined in the contract with a specific scope of services identified in Exhibit A. The services include all school sites, service centers, and support locations. This will come out of our general fund. It is a co-op pricing from one GPA contract 20-01 PV-01. So this is the what we're presenting to you. I decided on Monday, I said, I need to see just what this would cost us. We've had some conversations before of the future. And so I ran some numbers and I called Dr. Oates. I said, I am shocked. If we were to do this in-house, it would cost us $7.4 million plus to get started and then to maintain the services that they are providing for us in-house. 523,000 of that would be startup costs. So we got equipment you'd have to buy, and I fudged a little bit on the number of equipment pieces that we'd have, but like in our high schools where we should have 3 and 4 pieces, I was counting 1. But that just gives you a scope of savings. Back in 2012, we went with we outsourced our services. I think we still have about 22 people that are still serving that were with us before. They're still serving with ABM services. The impacts that are positive for an outsource is the financial impact. Obviously, we are looking for this 4.258 tonight versus what would cost us a 7.4. They do take care of the recruitment. They take care of the hiring, the training, retention, workman's comp, a big deal. When someone gets hurt on their clock, we don't get extra charges for that. They handle discipline issues, performance issues, terminations, equipment. And then if one of my dear principals calls me and says, Phil he's just not doing a good job around our kids in our building, I call them up and say, Phil needs to be out of the county. Don't move him over next door. Move him out of Rockdale. I don't care where you take him to, but just move Phil away. And we have that option. So, with that comes litigation. That's none of ours to deal with. That all falls on their shoulders. And so that's a blessing, as you would talk to HR, just other issues we have to deal with when it comes to performance. I know we're blessed with the best teams in the country, but when in every group there's 1 or 2 that we have to pay attention to. So that's a blessing there in itself. So we're presenting this to you. And obviously it's for this next year, there's been some conversation. Do we continue in this realm, or do we look at other opportunities? After sitting here with you and listening to our community members and their concern about where we are with our millage rate and just the cost of living that we face, obviously we've got to take the cheapest route, in my opinion, at this point in time, but get the services out of it that we expect. This last year was greatly improved over the year before. I think Mr. Kenny asked me a question last year, and I told him it had been a rough year, but we gave him a chance to. There you go. That dairy call for a night. Look what happens to you guys. But they've done a lot better. This last year, I would say it's not been without hiccups. When you're dealing with people and you're dealing with training and you're dealing with supervision, those are things that impact the quality of service. But our deal is to have the best service. And my principals can call me and they know that, and they have. In fact, some of them have surprised me this summer and as we started in school with thanking for how good their building looks. My charge is to keep it that way. Most of you went through the schools on the first week of school, the first day of school, and you saw for yourself some things, and I did too. And I'm proud of where we are. I'm not satisfied. Our strategic plan says continuous improvement, and we hold that for them also. Why the taking out the $85,000? Well, I want to have someone who has no strings tied to ABM that can look and focuses on what I want them to focus on. That person will be our eyes, inspect what we expect without any obligation to make ABM happy about it. It's their job just to look and to feel. I have a job description laid out for them, but this is the big part of it. listening to my principals, that eye-to-eyeball contact and their focus. That's his number one customer. As we face his customers, not ABM and what they need. His focus is what my principals and their schools will need. He will be a listening post to ensure that we hear what they need. And then his job will be to work with the company getting that in place. Or if he needs my support, obviously I'll be right there beside him. He's there to assure that we have services and provide continuous improvement in our schools. That's important for me, not only to get where we are, but to continue to improve as we go on and not have a yo-yo experience. So last year was like I mentioned, was greatly improved, and this year it started off great, and we expect to keep it going that way. His job will be the communication, specifically between the stakeholders, but primarily with our school administration and ABM leadership. And then I want him to evaluate the service, where we are, what we're doing, look at the future. We have the connections with our COs in the metro area and some of the bring outside of that, that we're talking about services that can be provided, other options that we may have. Gas at that conference, we run into a lot of opportunities and we study that. And then I've been wanting to build a CRT, which is a custodial response team that is a 3 or 4 man team, a person team that can respond to emergencies pronto. And obviously, this will be a one-man show until we get on down the road, but it would be a start in that regard. And part of that is some of you may remember when we lost the elbow of an RCA and had a flood on the hallway. Well, immediately we'll be there and they can start the work at custodial services inside and then reach out to the specialists who come in, depending on how big it is, but immediate response teams for things. When we have unfortunate situations that Cindy Ball calls me about, that we need a spray a 360 here or there, we will also have that access and to assure that it's accomplished and done to our satisfaction. So a lot's involved with that, but that's our goal. Yeah, we had to negotiate it. We had to work hard. We had to nail some things down. So if you approve it, we will move on in this direction. And that would be my desire and some recommendation tonight to you. So any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question. Hello, thank you for sharing the information. Who did you say was going to be collecting information about the ABM's performance in the schools? Because I remember when we made that switch to ABM, I was in the school and I was mortified.
Well, sorry you had to leave town because you could be happy now. But anyway, no, so part of this, the first focus of this, we got to have somebody who has no strings attached. They have some log on that you can go into. It's nice gadgets for evaluation that our principals or people in the school can fill, can fill, and we're supposed to get a copy of that. I need someone who is our person that will do that inspection, just like when I go in and look at these things, Janie. And they will be there when they can meet with my principals. They will also be on a schedule that we will be there in the evenings. There are times when I have popped in at night to investigate what's going on because people are people. And if you don't inspect what you expect, then they don't know. You know, the first time I stopped past Salem in the evening, I knew what they would do. They called Peaks Chapel, they called Memorial, said, hey, Phil's coming through. It was late in the evening. I didn't do that. I went over to Shoal Creek. I jumped to the other side of the county. So this person will help fill that gap, doing that kind of thing. Besides the communication, and then give us a walkthrough and check off inspection that the principals that our number one customers can say, that's it. That's where we need. This is where we're doing okay. And these are some other needs. So that's what I anticipate this decision being one as we move forward, whether we're married to whoever that provides a service, that we can have this in-house quality control.
And the principals will be able to provide their criteria or things that they're looking for with the service from ABM?
I've got to have that. Yes,
okay, y'all hear that? If you know, you know.
I'm not retiring for 20 years, so just get used to it, right? Yeah. Yes, that's important. Who else, Miss? All right, I got other action items. I got to keep moving because we can't stay here all night. The Heritage Fieldhouse. I know someone back here is going to be happy to see this. You better be taking care of him. Superintendent will recommend the Rockdale Board of Education approve strictly mechanical for the 9 barred units installation of the Heritage High School field house for $54,000. The scope of the work includes pouring the concrete pads, the steel stand, provide and install supply and return ductwork sleeves to the exterior wall and sidewall grills, provide exterior ductwork counter flashing and make it watertight finish. Provide and install all necessary condensate piping and install RCPS supplied bar units. My team will come back behind them and install the controls, handle the wiring and connect to power, test, install, and make sure the units are working as we help them to work. To provide HVAC in the field house is our goal. And for those of you that have been around a long time, there have been times we were ready to do it and some coach or AD or principal said, you know, they need to get acclimated to the weather. So we didn't do it. But now if the coach or our principal decides they don't want to use it, they can shut it off, but it's there for the next person. When I get there, it needs to be cool. Okay. $54,000 East Plus 5. These are barred units that are ours that we have in stock, and we will be putting those in. It's a great fix, and I'm thankful for Bruce Stewart and Ken Bohannon for thinking about this as we talked about the future there. Any question? But yes, ma'am.
So I'm just trying to vision this AC. Is it the wall unit or
Yes.
is it central?
Yeah, it's wall units, barred units,
Uh-huh.
but we pipe it in.
Okay, so when I walk in there,
You're
am
gonna
I
be
gonna
cold.
see some little,
You're gonna be cold.
I'm be
So
cold,
you'll
okay.
probably leave.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, we'll be good. Ms.
Thank you.
Pam. All right, yes, it is a long time coming. All right. Salem High School elevator project. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the selection of TK Elevator Corporation with the Sourcewell contract TK 080420 to perform the Salem High School elevator refurbishing project for $320,505.79. The scope of the project includes the elevator mechanical and electrical components being replaced, refurbished, and retained to meet the new life codes and requirements for our elevator service. Specifically, the communication capabilities and requirements required for the state inspections beginning in January 2025 will be completed in this project. So they will not sign off on our elevators past this current year if we do not do this work. So we got to get started and going. It's going to be $320,000, $505.79 from East Plus 5. And again, it's just to maintain certification and pass state inspections of our elevators. And that concludes all I have. Thank you.
Any
Tommy.
questions? Do you have any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Field.
Thank you.
Mr. Derek Ford is doing something really important. He's taking his daughter to school today, so Tommy's going to pinch hit for him. Thank you.
Hey, Tom.
Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chairwoman Duncan, Dr. Oates, board members. Good evening.
Good evening.
So to maintain, sustain our Learning Reimagine one-to-one initiative, we refresh our laptops every 3 years. So you guys approved laptop refresh for high schoolers last year. Those came in over the summer. In the last 2 weeks, they've been distributed to our high school students. So in school year 26, we'll be doing middle school, and school year 27, we'll be doing 2nd through 5th grade for elementary school. Our teacher laptops are next. So those need to be refreshed. We're going to go with the Dell Latitude 3340. They're 2-in-1 laptops, so teachers can actually fold them in half and use them as tablets. The i5 processors, 16 gigs of RAM. Really excited about them. It also includes a 3-year Dell warranty and asset tracking. And so our action item, high school teacher laptops, recommendation. The superintendent will recommend the Rockdale Board of Education approve the purchase of 550 Dell Latitude 3340 teacher laptops for $592,031 on state contract. The rationale, this is the sustainment portion of our Learning Reimagine program. The replacement plan for the teacher laptops is 3-year life cycle, which includes a 3-year warranty and asset tracking program for each device. This purchase will replace all high school teacher laptops. The purchase will be made using the Dell state contract. Financial impact, $592,031 from East Plus 6. It aligns with our strategic plan to standardize and modernize our classroom equipment. That's all I have for you.
Any questions? Go ahead.
And this is more for the public because in talking to the public, I've been asked this time and time again that the general public doesn't understand why the laptops have to be replaced every 3 years. They ask how come we can't get 4 or 5 years out of them. So for their benefit, can you explain the necessity of replacing the laptops every 3 years?
Sure. The reality is they're used every day, constantly, for the teachers and the students. These are workhorse laptops, right? They're constantly in used, and we're really happy to have a 3-year contract from Dell that maintains that. Really, most damage that happens to them, we're able to either fix them in-house by our Dell certified Intels or send them off and get them replaced. And so that warranty makes a big impact.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Tommy. Now, Dr. Smith-Dixon, Dr. Graham, actually.
Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, board members, Dr. Oates, cabinet, and guests. I am Dr. Patrice Graham. I'm the District Title IX Coordinator Officer for Students. I'm here tonight to present action item for Board Policy JCAC. I apologize. I thought I was before April.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, Dr. Oates, members of the board, and guests. I'm elated to stand before you once again because that means that we have another opportunity to provide psychological services to our students. And so this action item tonight is for a company called Psyched About School Behavior and Education Consulting. And our current status, the FY25 budget approved 8 contractors. So currently we stand at 1 full-time employee. We will have another employee join us in January when she finishes her practicum. So right now we have 6 contracted positions filled, and then tonight would be the 1 pending position, which is Psyched About School Psychology. So that leaves us with 1 vacant position, which I already am in talks with someone. So I think very soon we are going to be fully staffed. So very, very excited about that. Thank you, Janie. So the recommendation, the superintendent will recommend the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the new contract completed annually for recurring services for Psyched About School Behavior and Education Consulting as a private provider for psychoeducational evaluations totaling $152,000. The contract is contingent upon the approval by the superintendent and general counsel. Rationale: due to personnel shortages, we must contract with Psyched About School Behavior and Education Consulting for psychoeducational services. Assessment and evaluations are necessary to obtain critical information about students' cognitive ability, academic achievement, and specific skills related to the learning process. So again, the financial impact is $152,000 from general funds, and these funds have already been approved in the FY25 budget. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
This one more time. Well, I was supposed to be with April, so I'll step back.
See if it's in there. I know it's there. Well, what Dr. Graham and I have to say is very similar. So I'll go first and then she can piggyback off of it. Recently, we presented to you in July about sexual harassment Title IX regulations being updated in 2024. So now we're revisiting it because of an injunction that's in place. So July 25th, 2024, the board approved updates to board policy GAEB, sexual harassment of employees, so that board policy would comply with the new 2024 Title IX regulations, which was scheduled to take place on August 1st. On August 1st, however, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals issued a temporary injunction that blocked the enforceability of the new Title IX regulations in Georgia. Since that is not enforceable at this point, the U.S. Department of Education has opined that school districts should use the 2020 Title IX regulations to handle any Title IX complaints until the court either lifts that injunction or makes a final ruling on the 2024 Title IX regulations. This requires the board to reinstate the pre-July 25th version of Board Policy GAEB until the injunction is either lifted or the federal court makes a final ruling on the enforceability of the 2024 Title IX regulations. So, recommendation. The superintendent recommends that the Rockdale County Board of Education reinstate the version of Board Policy GAEB, sexual harassment of employees, that was based on the 2020 Title IX regulations. Our CPS will use Board Policy GAEB based on the 2020 Title IX regulations until the court either lifts the injunction blocking the enforcement of the 2024 Title IX regulations or makes a final ruling on the enforceability of the 2024 Title IX regulations, whichever is earlier. If the court allows the 2024 Title IX regulations to take effect, then our CPS will use Board Policy GAEB based on the 2024 Title IX regulations that the board approved on July 25th, 2024. The rationale: the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals enjoined the enforceability of the 2024 Title IX regulations, and the U.S. Department of Education opined that school districts should use the 2020 Title IX regulations until the court either lifts the injunction blocking the enforcement of the 24 Title IX regulations or makes a final ruling on the enforceability of the 2024 Title IX regulations, whichever is earlier. Are there any questions? Dr. Graham has the student side of things, which is almost identical.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Action item, Board Policy JCAC, sexual harassment of students. Recommendation: the superintendent recommends that the Rockdale County Board of Education reinstate the version of Board Policy JCAC, sexual harassment of students. That was based on the 2020 Title IX regulations. RCPS will use this version of Board Policy JCAC until the court either lifts its injunction blocking the enforcement of the 2024 Title IX regulations or makes a final ruling that the 2024 Title IX regulations are enforceable, whichever is earlier. If the court allows the 2024 Title IX regulations to take effect, then RCPS will use the version of Board Policy JCAC based on the 2024 Title IX regulations that the board approved on July 25th, 2024. Rationale: the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals enjoined the enforceability of the 2024 Title IX regulations, and the U.S. Department of Education has opined that school districts should use the 2020 Title IX regulations until the court either lifts the injunction blocking the enforcement of 2024 Title IX regulations or makes a final ruling on the enforceability of the 2024 Title IX regulations, whichever is earlier. The pre-July 25th, 2024 version of Board Policy JCAC was based on the 2020 Title IX regulations. Financial impact: there is no financial impact.
Dr. Graham, quick question before you walk away. Reading the policy on the screen, we're referring to GAEB and you're referring to JCAC.
Yes, ma'am.
Her presentation is in your folder.
Just need
It
to-
wasn't.
Somehow in here.
Okay.
this evening. We cannot find it for you right this moment, but it is in the folder and on there.
Okay, I see the one in the folder. I was just wondering why we're
Why
looking
that's
at
up
that one
there.
on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
As I was clicking, it wasn't, the
it wasn't
presentation was
coming
not
up.
there.
Okay, so it's pretty much, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
perfect.
And
Thank
we're
you.
presenting it in this manner so that, so that once they make a decision, we don't have to bring it back to you all again.
Okay, perfect. That's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, updates, Dr. Oates?
I don't have any, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay. All right. What? Yes.
Additions that you only have one left. This is all from 2025 budget. We had one in the 2024 budget.
So basically, when we approved the Reliant contract
Mhm.
back in June, that's the money that we keep moving money out of to fund these other companies because Reliant just has not been able to fund our psychologists. So right now, the two employees are out of general budget, but when the FY25 budget was approved, we had 8 total slots for school psychologists. Does that answer your question?
It does. I just wanted to. It's something for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, the cabinet has provided numerous presentations under the section of information, and I asked the board to please review that information at your earliest. At this time, we can take a few minutes for recess, or we can just move straight on through. Okay. Y'all gonna stay with us? I'm gonna go fast. We're almost there, y'all. Please review the July 2024 board minutes and provide any edits to Ingrid. We will vote on the minutes at the regular session. There is no old business, but we do have new business. Do I hear a motion with the board reinstate the version of board policy GAEB, which is the sexual harassment of employees, that was based on the 2020 Title IX regulations? Rockdale County Public Schools will use the version of the board policy GAEB until the court either lifts the injunction blocking the enforcement of the 2024 Title IX regulations, or makes a final ruling that the 2024 Title IX regulations are enforceable, whichever is earlier. If the court allows the 2024 Title IX regulations to take effect, then Rockdale County Public Schools will use the version of board policy GAEB based on the 2024 Title IX regulations that the board approved on July the 25th, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Justin.
Second, Janie Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney and Ms. Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion that the board reinstate the version of board policy JCAC, which is the sexual harassment of students, that was based on the 2020 Title IX regulations? Rockdale County Public Schools will use this version of board policy JCAC until the court either lifts the injunction blocking the enforcement of the 2024 Title IX enforceable regulations, or makes a final ruling that the 2024 Title IX regulations are enforceable, whichever is earlier. If the court allows the 2024 Title IX regulations to take effect, then Rockdale County Public Schools will use the version of board policy JCAC based on the 2024 Title IX regulations that the board approved on July the 25th, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny, and for that motion, and second, Ms. Sandra Jackson-Lett. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. The cabinet has provided an overview of the action items for the board to vote on next week. Is there a motion for the action items to be placed on a consent agenda?
So moved, Heather.
Second, Akita Palmer.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan, and second the motion, Ms. Akita Palmer. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. They've been nice tonight. There is no board discussion. Okay. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Okay. Do I hear a motion to conclude the meeting?
So moved, Janie Jones.
Girl. Thank you so much, Ms. Jones, and thank you, Mandy North, for seconding that motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Good night, everyone, and thank you for coming. I see you later.